everyone, and welcome back to this week's episode of Rinkside with myself, Ryan Steves, and now my Olympian co-host, Emma Miskew. What's up, Emma?
Hey, Ryan, how's it going?
Good, good. I said to you when you joined, Emma, just before we hit record, I didn't get any cooler since the last episode, but you did. You've now qualified successfully for Italy in February. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. It's been a whirlwind, but it's very exciting and there's lots to do, which we'll get into today, but it's nice to know that the event has happened, it's over, and that we
Yeah.
won it for sure.
Yeah. So just so our listeners know, today it was really a no-brainer. It's been a few weeks now, I suppose, but we wanted to get you on and get you talking a little bit about the Olympic trials, which, as many know, were held at the end of November for men's and women's curling, and Team Homan was successful in booking their ticket back to the Olympics, which are being held in February in Italy. So I know it's been just a slog for you, Emma, and the rest of your teammates. How are you feeling now, a couple weeks on after that wild run?
So still a little tired, but good tired. It's one of those feelings that's a little bit hard to describe because you come off, I mean, leading in, the nerves start to creep in. It's something that we made this team with that goal in mind, was to win the trials and go back to the Olympics as Team Canada for Rachel and I. The other two, Sarah and Tracy, haven't been able to experience the Olympics yet, so this is going to be their first time. So we really wanted to go in there. We really wanted to win that event, and the past few years, we've been performing so well. So we had high expectations. We really wanted to have a good week. We wanted to come on top. We wanted to be able to go and represent Canada again at the Olympics, as opposed to the Worlds from last year and the year before that. But it felt like the pressure was on, and it felt like it was ours to lose as opposed to this like really exciting thing to go and win. So you really feel that, and the media and the questions and all that reflect that sentiment. So it was very draining,
Mhm.
but in a good way. But you want to celebrate after. You're like, oh, let's celebrate, but we're so tired. So we tried to celebrate a little bit with all our friends and family that came out there, but really, like, we're pretty tired, and it's like a few weeks out, still trying to catch up. It's like you can't sleep enough, and for me, I'm like, I'm so hungry.
Yeah,
You're like
yeah,
fully depleted. I'm like, I could eat all day.
yeah. I bet.
So it's a funny kind of come down from such an exciting win. You actually think it's going to be this like way more exciting thing than it is. I'm like, let me sleep.
Yeah. Well, it's got to be interesting, right? Because yours is a sport that doesn't only prepare on a 4-year cycle, like many Olympic sports, and with competition in between Olympics, of course. But you're running a full schedule, and then I know from knowing you now for a little while that there was this quiet buildup to these trials, and I know your team has been there once. We're talking what, 2018, right? Right. So it's been a while, but there was this buildup because of how successful your team has been, and constantly performing, right? And what a run you've been on. So I think most Canadian Olympic or Canadian curling fans were watching with a bit of hope, right? Like we just hope that Team Homan can come through. They deserve this for the year and a half, 2 years you've had. So yeah, talk about that relief of being able to have this massive buildup and expectation, yet also delivering really when it mattered most over the course of a week and a half.
It was definitely a grind there. And we knew, like, all the teams that qualify for the trials are all very capable
Mm-hmm.
of high quality curling. All the teams that are there have an ability to play 100% at any given time. So we knew that it was going to be a grind. We lost a game early, um, and the team played really well, and so the media was kinda on it, like, "What does that mean that, like, you lost that game?" It's like, well, sometimes you gotta give credit where credit's due, and, like, they
Mm-hmm.
played really well. Can we tighten things up a little bit? Yeah, but it's not like we have to go back to the drawing board and figure out what went super wrong here. Like, we didn't play badly. They were firing, and sometimes it's
Mhm.
going to happen. So knowing that going into the trials, we're like, if you lose the wrong game at the wrong time, even though you could be the best team there, that could impact your chances of going to the Olympics. So it was a little bit nerve wracking in that sense. And then also, yeah, just the conversation about like, it's kind of ours to win. And you're like, okay, yeah, we know, stop saying that. And we just want to go and do our thing and shot by shot, one game at a time, and see where we end up near the end. But it would be a lie to say that the emotions at the end weren't a mix of like pure joy and happiness and a little bit of
Mhm.
relief as well.
Mhm.
Um, it feels weird to say that because winning the trials is
Right.
such an amazing accomplishment, and
Mhm.
we're so excited and so happy, but there's definitely a little bit of relief in there, and it would have been very disappointing to not come out
Mhm.
on top of that event, like in that event, just based off of the years that we've had previously, but that never you still have to finish it off when it matters. So and we had some challenges with the ice conditions because there was so much
Yeah.
rain
I wanted to ask you
that
about this.
yeah, but we can dive into that. You
Yeah.
can
Well, let me ask you this because again, I'm not an expert, but I'm watching, right? Our whole family's watching, right? We're all in on Emma and Team Homan. And we're hearing all the talk about ice, and because for listeners too who didn't follow, you're playing a best of three final, and so I don't know how they arrange which rink you're playing on, but ice seemed to be a big factor, and so the lanes that you're focusing on aren't acting the way that you expect them to, perhaps, and so yeah, talk about that because what an added dimension here that takes just the when other sports you can control a lot, and ice, take hockey for example, is not usually a factor like that. But talk about how much of a factor that did play in the final two games.
yeah, I always have, trouble explaining to hockey players or
Mm,
other athletes that are on ice how weather and, like, humidity factors can play such a big part in curling, where it could maybe change the conditions a little bit if you're on skates, but nothing that's going to be super impactful.
mm,
The ice being so if it's humid and the dehumidification system that is in the building isn't capable of cutting that humidity at a fairly high amount for the amount of rain that was there, it would have been having to work quite hard. The ice gets frosty, so the moisture kinda sits on top of the ice, and it makes it so that it's unpredictable, and if you've left if you play a lot of shots in one area of the ice, and then you go to the other side of the sheet where you haven't had a lot of rocks go down, it can be a completely wild guess. So, the problem with the way we play is that we don't have a lot of guesswork. We map out the sheet very meticulously. All four players are involved in trying to figure out what every path is going to do based like how hard you have to throw it, what the lines are going to do and everything. So when you don't know, that makes it an equalizer in curling. So both teams just have no information, don't know anything, and you're just throwing, hoping for the best.
right.
So that's not ideal. That's definitely not, as a player, the conditions that you want in a major championship. That being said, the East Coast, having events in the East Coast, that's always a risk. So even Ottawa, we have fairly humid climate here.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a risk, like here and anywhere east where weather can play a part and you can't control the weather, and the dehumidifier wasn't working the way it was supposed to. And so not only do we have frost and some unpredictable conditions, it was only sometimes, not all the time. So you got used to kind of a nice sheet of ice, then the next game it would be super challenging, and then the next game would be fine, and you're like, what are we gonna get today? So
Jeez.
our first final, the ice was quite frosty and quite challenging. And then in our second final, the ice was quite good. So we were able to actually get a read off of it and learn from the sheet a little bit better. So we felt a little bit more confident out there.
Okay.
But yeah, it's a funny thing that not all ice athletes or sports will feel that frost as much as in curling. But with the rock on the ice, that's where it's
Mm,
impacted. Like the rock is what's going to go off course. It's not not like our shoes or anything.
Yeah, well, watching game 1 didn't when so when the game wrapped up and it was over, when I watched your faces, you didn't seem overly happy. My sense was that you felt like Team Black could have stolen one there, and it wasn't the strongest way to finish out the game. Was that the way it was with Team Homan back in the dressing room, the locker room, feeling like maybe you didn't quite wrap it up the way you wanted to?
Well, it wasn't even from we weren't frustrated at ourselves. We were relieved that we were able to still pull out the win. But we had some frustration just about the conditions that we were on. And yeah, we our one of the girls does her social media. She had a video after she was going to post of us like, "Yay, won game 1," and then she's like,
Yeah.
"I don't look very happy," so they didn't post it. But we were relieved and frustrated. And the rest of the day, we were kind of still venting about it a little bit. Like when we went into this line, we had no idea what it was going to do. And if we got into a fresh line, the way that the ice was would cause our releases to look weird. And we're like, "Okay, so how?" We kind of vented about it for a bit. And then we're like, "Okay, how are we going to manage it if it's like that again?" Because the chances are it will be. That's been the ice conditions more than it hasn't been this week. So what are we
Mhm.
going to do if we do get that ice surface again to help make it easier on ourselves? Like, what information can we take from that we can learn from so that we're not so frustrated out there?
Mhm.
Because we definitely were frustrated. And it was like, well, that was a well thrown rock and got nothing out of it. And then it would happen again. And there were a few picks. And for
Yeah.
anyone who doesn't know curling super well, picks is when the rock veers off course because of some sort of debris or dirt or anything that is under the running band of the rock. And so it just goes in whatever direction it wants to. And those are always unfortunate because they're
Yeah.
bad luck. It's just
Yeah.
straight up bad luck that happens. So yeah, that was our kind of first game. So we went on the second game and we almost played a little bit like angry we just started off playing like expecting the ice is going to be the same and went out and played a little bit angry, and
Yeah.
we managed the ice a lot better and played a lot better. So it was a nice way to finish off.
Yeah, one of the things that I loved watching was your timeouts. I'm always amazed. First of all, it's got to be hard to be mic'd up all the time. Getting the insight as a fan and watching and listening in on your timeouts where you're strategizing. Talk about that because it's all hands on deck. I mean, there's no one that really. It's not like Rachel takes command. You're all contributing ideas and thought and strategy in real time with the clock running down. But for the world to hear, can you talk about that? Because I am amazed at how constructive and positive it is, even when somebody dismisses your idea as not being the best one to pursue. It's all pretty positive.
Yeah, I think that the way that curling used to be was that the skip just called the game and everyone just did it and there was minimal discussion from
Mhm.
anybody else. But that's not really how it is anymore. And I think the reason for
Agree.
that is that there are 4 brains out there that all are contributing information or might see something that
Right.
someone else doesn't see, or you see it differently from one end of the sheet than the other. So having just knowing all the shot options on a big shot or on a key shot is only valuable for everyone on the ice. So we always have the approach of like, if you see something or an option and it's not being discussed, bring it up because it could be the right shot that just someone's not seeing it right away. Ultimately, in all those discussions, like any shot that gets brought up is a good option. It's sometimes like dependent on the thrower, how they're feeling in that moment, what they want to throw. And then also just again, ice condition dependent. Like, have we
Yeah.
seen, are we going into a weird line in the frost where we don't know what it's going to do? So
Frustrating.
having those conversations is always super helpful and they instill confidence in one another too. Just being
Mhm.
like, oh, well, I saw it here and it's going to do this. And then as a player, like, great, I have information. I know how to make this shot. And then on top of that, I used to play third. So I used to play back end. Sarah, who's our lead, she used to play third and second. So all of us have back end experience. So all of our brains kind of work that way from a
Mm.
strategy angle. And that's like, we can't turn it off that easily. So
Mhm.
I feel like I see the game so well, and going on the other end of the sheet and playing front end doesn't change that. I still see the game so clearly. And sometimes I see something that they don't see on their end, and then I bring it up and they're like, oh, okay. And then other times I go down, I'm like, oh, my idea was bad.
Hmm. Hmm.
And now when I get down there, it's not a good idea anymore. So it just depends on what the situation is, but it is nice to have more than one person having all that pressure to call the perfect shots.
Yeah. Well, it works. It really is. Seeing your communication styles and team first approach over everything is pretty impressive. Let's pivot. So you're 2 months out, almost to the day, or I guess a little under 2 months, to Italy. What is that final prep stretch look like for a curling team as opposed to maybe more of an individual sport? Because you do have some events coming up, so it's not like you just get to put all eyes on Italy. You still have to go out and perform in an event pre-Olympics. So what's your prep like?
Yeah, we had 2 weeks from the trials to off until our next Grand Slam tournament, which is kind of short for a recovery from an event with that much of a high at the end. But that's just the way the scheduling is. So we have a Grand Slam, and then another Grand Slam early in the new year. And then those are the last two events between the trials and the Olympics. The one thing that's kind of nice is that the strategy for the Grand Slams is a little bit different, being that the games are 8 ends versus 10 ends, and there are some different rules mixed in there. So we can go into those and kind of use them as just practice to throw the rock as well as we can, and communication with the team, as opposed to it being exactly the same type of curling that we're going to see at the Olympics, and use them as training events. Because now at this point we were trying super hard to peak for the Olympic trials, but you can't peak all the time. So now our next goal is to be able to peak at the Olympics. So next week we're going to try to still be successful. That's always our goal, but with probably little goals in mind throughout the games. Like, oh, we're going to try really hard to make sure that in this area we're throwing the rock like this, or we're throwing the rock as close as we can to each other, regardless of the results, and just little objectives that we can add in. And then, so we have the Grand Slam, then we have Christmas. Christmas will be a little bit of a recovery, hopefully, because this is always busier than anyone anticipates, as we all know. And then Grand Slam early January, and then we're in full training mode for 3 weeks and leave for Italy on February 3rd. So those
Okay.
3 weeks, we will have a training camp all together, probably like 3 or 4 days. That'll be intensive, lots of good quality repetitions with each other, communication stuff and technical. And then when we leave for Italy on the 3rd, we are going into a training camp in Italy. So another training camp where we will be just off site from where we're going to be in our Olympic Village in Cortina. And I think that's 4 days. So we're getting there decently early. So I think we only
Okay.
start playing on the 12th.
Do you play any exhibition matches? Is that something you do in curling? Like in the lead up to this, would you get there and just want to, do you get a chance to see the actual ice that you're going to be competing on?
Well, so we won't be allowed to do any exhibition games on the Olympic ice. You're not really allowed. The only access is, so it's in an arena. They put it in just for this event. So the mixed doubles will be happening. The Olympic mixed doubles team will be playing their event on the ice right before we start.
Okay.
So at least we'll have a chance to watch a little bit of the ice surface with their playing. But we won't be able to get on until our designated practice time. So we will get to practice on the ice. But in that practice time, we wouldn't have an exhibition game or anything. The ice time is not long enough and you're rotating sheets. So they're like, oh, you have 15 minutes or 10 minutes per sheet or what. I haven't
Wow.
looked at the rule. So you would use that time to just throw some shots on the sheets, but also match the rocks, see if they're all close enough to each other, or if there's anything that's glaring, you make a note of it. So we won't have any, and yeah, we won't have any exhibition games per se, but often in our training camps, we either throw kind of a game against ourselves.
Mhm.
It goes a little slower
Do you
because,
need me to come?
pardon?
Do you need me to come and I can,
Yeah.
step in and
Yeah,
Happy to
just,
do that, Rinkside on location.
exactly, yeah, just a live we'll just do a
Yeah,
live
yeah.
podcast for it.
It's awesome.
But it is nice to or we have a coach there that will go and place the rocks as it was the other team, and that's helpful too. So, we have lots of games this year. We're not too worried about the exhibition game side of it, but it is a good question. It's just
Mhm.
hard to find a team that you wanna because 'cause you're learning from another team every time you play an exhibition game against them.
Yeah.
So, you're getting a little more information about them. They're getting more information about you.
Well,
So,
yeah.
not everyone wants to open up those
Well, other
those
sports
cards
do
to
it.
show.
Other sports do it, I guess, but it's less of a it's more of I guess the more dynamic sports without, you know, hearing from you talk about how much ice conditions matter. I mean, that alone is a reason maybe not to wanna play an exhibition game, to give another team the same reads that you're getting. So I can see all the strategy around it. Yeah, interesting. And I guess that period is a good time too to get Rachel Brown, right? Your alternate,
Mhm.
because what if she has to go in, right? So it's keeping the whole team sharp too, and so utilizing that practice and training camp time, right?
Yeah, exactly. And we have our training camp, it'll just be our team, and the men's
Okay,
team has ice as well, so we won't have to share the ice with other teams that will be at
nice,
the Olympics.
nice.
Which is nice because it's also, like, on our schedule, we're not fighting for ice times, all that sort of stuff. It is a little bit challenging when it's like that, and in Korea last year at our Worlds, the
Mhm.
practice ice beforehand was like that. They were all the countries were out there, they booked there were tons of sheets, but everyone was there at the same time. So you could kind of you watch closely enough, you could pick up a line that you know someone else is working on because if they keep throwing it over and over, you're like, "Oh, that must
Yeah,
be a spot that they don't like." So you could kinda make note of some stuff. So it's nice to have our own little designated area.
yeah. So at the upcoming Grand Slam event, is Constantini, are they the Italy reps?
They are, yeah,
So they're a
and so
strong team,
they're
right?
yeah, so they have been at our world championships the past few years.
Mhm.
They are very, they play very well against us every single time, so we know that's gonna be a battle, and also being the home
Yeah,
team, there's something to be
yeah,
said about
for sure.
performing well when you have the crowd behind you.
But then I looked at your schedule. That's game one, right? It's game one at the Grand Slam event in Saskatoon, right? So kind of
Mhm.
a fun little preview there, maybe.
Yes, yeah. It's nice. I mean, the Grand Slam events are always just it's gonna be fun to get back out on the ice together, not have too long of a break, as much as a few more days would have been nice. But yeah, it'll be a good game, I'm sure, and
Nice,
we played them earlier this year and they beat us, so we're gonna be gunning for them.
sweet. So a story I have to tell when I was watching and I saw you qualify for Italy. It was like the next day or two. I saw this the story that ran on CBC News, which was the Cortina Olympic Village is a trailer park featuring 400 mobile homes in an alpine valley. And so they show these, yeah, I guess these like movable units that they've placed in this majestic alpine valley. So I texted you and I said, "Are you staying in the trailer park?" And so I think that's where the curling and there's a whole bunch of different sports that are staying at Cortina, which is where your event is running out of. So have you looked into this Olympic Village yet? This athletes village?
Yeah, so we knew ahead of time that's what it was going to be,
Nice.
and they're always different. You never
Yeah.
know. In Pyeongchang, when we were there, they built up all these big apartment complexes that I think they were selling right after the games to locals to buy these apartments. So they were pretty fully functioning. Like they had kitchens that weren't really installed yet, but
Good.
that was their goal. So in this situation, Curling Canada goes and does a site visit ahead of time because they
Okay.
want to be able to provide any information that they can so nothing's a surprise, nothing's
Right.
overwhelming. And they come back, they have these videos for this video compilation of what everything looks like there. And this was in
Cool.
September or in August, and we're like, okay, we're far from this right now. We want to just go and win. They're like, we just want to show everybody. So they show us these videos and they're like, and these are the accommodations. And we're like, really? And they look so small, but they seem like they're quite nice inside.
Awesome.
So it is gonna be tight
Yeah.
compared to, like, what we're used to. We try often to get, like, one room that's a little bigger so that we can have lounge time as a team. We're like, "Well, that's not really gonna be an option here, so we're gonna have to find another place to go hang," but,
Yeah.
they seem like they're nice,
Yeah.
so we'll take
Nice.
it.
Yeah. I
It's
when I read the
unique.
story, it seemed to be about placing this Olympic Village in this amazing environment for athletes, but then being able to remove it all as if you weren't even there, right? Is sort of the idea behind this, which I can applaud, certainly. So
Yeah.
you'll have to keep us, you'll have to remember to keep us, Rinkside listeners posted on the accommodations. I mean, it's certainly
Yeah.
gotten some attention, so we'll have to see how it is.
Yeah, and I'm curious too, we're super far away.
Mm,
Like the last Olympics that I was at too, we were in a village with everybody else, like in
right.
the main grounds, and now we are up mountain, which
Mm,
one, there's gonna be an altitude situation from a breathing perspective. We competed in Tahoe a few weeks ago for a Grand Slam, and the elevation is higher there, and you feel it as a sweeper.
right.
You're out of breath a lot faster than
Mhm.
when you're closer to sea level. So that is going to be the same,
Yeah,
I
it's
think.
almost I just looked, it's 4,000 feet elevation, which is just a little less than Denver. Yeah, that does make when you're exerting yourself, it matters. It makes a big difference.
It
So you're
does.
gonna
I was happy to actually have that experience and know that it is normal to feel that winded at the start of a game because you're not used to it. Because now in Italy, that's going to be the same, and at least we know.
yeah. Wow. That's yeah, what an interesting dynamic. I guess many winter sports, I presume they're quite used to altitude, but not necessarily curling, right? So,
No,
yeah.
not
Yeah.
often, I would say, especially since the majority of our events are in Canada and not typically in the mountain range in
Yeah.
Canada. But it affects you mostly at the beginning of the
Mhm.
event because you're really not used to it.
Yep.
But even later, I think it was the final in Tahoe. At one point, they caught me on the mic just being like, "Oh, I can't wait to get back to normal altitude," because you just have one big soup, but it
Mhm.
kills you so much more than if you were just at normal sea level. Or, I mean, Ottawa's quite low compared to, like, Halifax, you're basically at sea level. So,
Mm.
yeah, it's gonna be a bit different, and then we're also removed from a large chunk of the athletes that are there, and
Yeah.
it's not close to get to those events, so we're gonna be a little bit more in our own bubble than we were in Pyeongchang as well.
Yeah. Well, drink lots of water. I know
Yeah.
elevation really depletes your system. So, now does the Olympic team take care of helping you prepare for those kinds of elements? You know, giving you guidance on how to prepare and on how to manage your body, how to train before your event starts to get used to elevation?
Not yet, but we've been allowed to recover,
Yep.
up until now.
Right.
Resources are starting to come our way for various things, so that's probably something that's going to be brought up. We
Mhm.
also do have that training camp ahead of the games where we'll be able to kind of test out some of the sweeping and breathing recovery there in real time because it's hard to replicate
Yeah.
altitude.
Yeah.
It's a hard thing
No, I
to,
know.
especially when you're in a city where there aren't really any hills you can go up that would be anywhere
Yeah.
close to the altitude that we're going to be at there.
Mhm.
But it's good information if they have about, yeah, like you said, hydration and even like different nutritional things you can do to try to help them with
Mhm.
breathing or with our lung capacity. So hopefully we get some of that info in the coming weeks and can start preparing for what's going to be like.
Yeah. Well, that's amazing. We'll let you go, Emma. I think it's really fascinating. Hopefully, our listeners and curling fans and Emma fans and Team Homan fans find this really interesting. You know, keep us posted as we get closer and closer. It's going to be so much fun watching you.
Yeah, I mean, we're really excited. We'll be training hard and
Mhm.
all busy until then, but always still have time Rinkside. So
Yeah.
I'll be keeping you all updated on how training and everything is going. But it's all a very exciting time
No
for Team
kidding.
Homan for sure.
Yeah. Congrats. We're so proud of you. Okay. Well, thanks everybody. Thanks for listening. And we'll be back next week before we take a bit of a Christmas pause. But as always, thank you so much for choosing us and listening.